Welcome to Mass Analytics Podcast, where we bring you the world's top market and measurement experts. Half my advertising spend is wasted. The problem is, I don't know which half. John Wanamaker. The problem with marketing spending has always been related to finding the best way to attribute resources in order to get the highest marketing return on investment. In that regard, marketing budget optimization has become the most recent and discussed topic in the industry. With us today is Ramla Jarrar, our usual guest and CEO of Mass Analytics. Ramla, welcome.
Hello. Hi, Ash.
Hi. So to start the conversation, could you please provide us with a refresher on the key principles behind marketing mix optimization and why do we do optimization in the first place?
Okay, so whenever I talk about this subject, I would like to highlight or remind the audience that when we talk about marketing mix modeling, there is actually a pyramid behind this. And this pyramid has three components. The first one is the measurement, and the second one is prediction. The third one is optimization. And the reason for which I mentioned this pyramid is that it's very important to understand that the underlying of any optimization is measurements. You cannot do optimization if you don't spend enough time fine-tuning and making sure that your measurement method is robust and is providing you with great results, both commercially and statistically. So I think in order to address your question about the background of this, we couldn't think about a great optimization exercise without making sure that actually the underlying modeling is done and it's done properly.
In a nutshell, could we say that optimization is about transferring the budget to the media that generates the highest incremental revenue?
Yes, in a way. However, I need to probably describe the story here, because in order for you to move the budget to the channel that gives you the highest incremental revenue, it's very important that in the measurement phase that I spoke about earlier on, that you embed some kind of diminishing returns or saturation to your media channels. Because if you do not account for some kind of saturation or GR into your measurement or into your variables when you do the modeling, there is no way that you would be capable of optimizing. So in other terms, you need to first, in your modeling stage, when you look at your media variables, for example, obviously one of the most known transformation is the ad stock, in order to materialize the fact that actually there's a carryover effect between the moment you advertise and the moment your customer decides to respond. In addition to that carryover effect that is generally modeled through an ad stock or a variation of an ad stock, because there are different ways of modeling this, it's also very important to add a component of saturation to that variable. So it's a case of saying, you know what, I know that the more I advertise, the more sales I get. However, I know that that incremental revenue, the incremental sales that I'm getting as a result of my investment will increase as my budget increases. So the incremental revenue that I will get when I'm spending 1 million won't be the same as the incremental revenue that I will get when I'm spending 5 million. So when I am at 5 million, I would expect to be more on saturation than when I am spending 1 million. And for that, you need to apply a mathematical transformation to your ad stock in order to account for that. And that mathematical transformation should be a part of the variable that will end up in your final model. Once this is done, then optimization becomes an exercise where the optimizer will try to move the budget towards the channel that gives you the highest incremental sales. In other terms, we devise different diminishing return curves. Those diminishing return curves portray the variables that have been measured in your model. Each curve will have different saturation level, and the way optimization works is not an absolute exercise, it's a relative exercise. What does it mean? It means that at any point in time, you will look at where you are in terms of budget, and the optimizer will ask the following question. If I have, for example, 50K more to spend, where should I spend them? and it will compare the incremental revenue that you will get from every single channel. And it will move the money towards the channel where you have the highest incremental revenue. So that's why I'm saying if you do not have your saturation embedded in your variable, there is no way you can optimize. And most of the cases, and the reason for which I insist on that, I had many clients come into me and say, you know what, I have done my model, I've reported on my ROI, everything is great. Now I want to optimize and it doesn't work. And then when I ask them to open the equation and look at it, what happens is that most of the time, they do not apply the saturation transformation to the variable. So they end up with a linear variable. What does it mean, a linear variable? It means that the more you spend, the more you get. There is no way that that media channel will saturate. So when you do that relative exercise that I'm talking about earlier on, and if you have a linear curve, what does it mean? It means that the optimizer will put your budget in the media that has the high slope, regardless of the investment at which you are. And in that case, you will obtain what I call a dull optimization, and you wouldn't be capable of turning a good optimization back to your client. And that's why measurement is key to optimization.
So we could say here that marketing mix measurement is a means to an end, in a sense. So like the more solid the platform of marketing measurement is, the better optimization you'll be able to achieve to your marketing mix.
Yes, I can't agree more on what you're saying, Ash, because actually the known saying in our industry is garbage in, garbage out. So we say this about the data. So we have garbage data in, you will get a garbage model out. Same thing, if you have a garbage model in to the optimization, you will get a garbage optimization out of your optimization. So key to the process, to the whole marketing mix modeling process, is great data that you then transform the right way in order to obtain good model and good input for optimization. And then you move to your optimization to get your results that will sound perfectly well to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of data, we see a lot of interest on gathering a massive amount of data, especially now as marketing spending becomes more and more digitalized. But we don't see a lot of voices talking about the importance of data transformation and the creation of artificial variables that will better assimilate the actual advertising landscape. In a sense, is MMM ready, or did it evolve to adapt to this increasing spending on digital media? And is it capable to create those transformations that will make it suitable for digital media spending optimization?
This is a very good question. And my answer here, it really depends on the person that is using that is doing the modeling. Because if you, again, and I think that this is not specific to digital, it's actually general to any marketing input you have. So you have some models where they get data and they go straight onto the modeling and they try to create their models without understanding the data they have at hand. They don't understand the brands, they don't understand the context, they don't understand how customers have reacted to those variables, and they will jump into the modeling and they will try to create a model that is good statistically, but they completely forget about the story behind, the story that they have to tell their customers later. And you have the other type of modelers that will be spending a lot of time to understand the brand, its context, its challenges, the way its customers react to the different marketing activities. And they'll try to put themselves in the shoes of that customer and try to understand how they have digested the different activities. So they try to be very sophisticated and very inventive and very innovative when it comes what mathematical transformation I need to apply to these variables in order to mimic how my customers have reacted to my activities. And that's where I think you can distinguish between a good modeler and not that good modeler. Because the person or the modeler that will be spending time trying to understand your brand, your challenges, and try to be sophisticated in the way he applied or she applies transformation to the variables in order to make them alive, in order to make them translate how your customers have behaved. That's what will distinguish the good ones from the less good ones. And coming back to the discussion about digital variables, again, it's the same thing. If your modeler is capable of understanding the essence of those digital channels, the proliferation of them, and the different metrics that are made available to us. And what is the difference between an impression and a click and call to action and CTR? So they are capable of going the extra mile to try to find out the right transformation to apply to these metrics, and actually which metric I should be considering in my model in the first place. Is it spend? Is it search? Is it impression? Is it at the total level? Is it at the brand level? Is it organic? Is it brand orientated? And that investigation, that's what will make your MMM encompass the granularity and the particularity of your digital data. So if your model doesn't understand that, there is no way that he or she can make the right transformation that can mimic how customers have behaved, and obviously you won't get your right model.
To sum it up, that the most important aspect of optimization is not actually optimization, it's the preparation that is done before. So whether or not whether it's online or offline, you need a modeler who is able to immerse themselves into the experience that the customer is going through in terms of exposure to different media in order to be able to create the correct artificial variables to actually model it. Which is quite funny because you see a lot of modelers talking about the importance of modeler and how sophisticated their models are, but they never actually went through the experience of buying the product or purchasing the service through the whole digital journey that the customer goes through.
Yes, I do agree with you, Ash. It's very, very important that there is this immersion of the modeler about the brand. I remember that example where I had one analyst telling me that the contribution of price is say X, and then I asked the question, so you say that the contribution of price to your sales is, say, for example, 200 units, but so your price has changed. Can you tell me what were the movement of your price during the period that you have modeled? And that analyst was incapable of telling me what happened. So how on earth can you report on a contribution of price where you didn't have time to spend looking at the variable price to understand your starting price, your ending price, the movement of the price that happened during the period? So for me, giving you a contribution. I don't really care if you do not understand what does this mean and whether this makes sense or not, because you can obtain a great statistical model with a great R-square, with a very small standard error, and with a great value of multicollinearity, etc., but actually it doesn't make sense. And it's just an artificial construction of a model. So yes, I do agree that the hardest part of any MMM project is modeling, because optimization at the end of the day is based on an algorithm, and those algorithms are known, they are used, they are exposed, everybody knows them. They are based on different mathematical kind of formulas that are already known. However, what makes the difference is what you feed into those optimizers. That's what will make the difference.
Yes, definitely. I see a lot of logic in this approach or in this mindset, but it's easy to spot a potential drawback, which is that if an analyst takes the time to immerse themselves in the experience that the potential customer would go through when buying a product, they would risk spending a lot of time and resources in one particular project. So in a way, is it possible to optimize this process? Is there some kind of tools or some kind of techniques that can be used in order to accelerate the time taken to create a whole market and mix modeling project that ends or like that encompasses the process of optimization?
So there is actually a process which I have described a little bit at the start of this discussion, is that your first point of entry to optimization is your model. So first, you have to look at your variables. Generally, our clients ask us to optimize over their media budget. That's the common variables that our clients ask us to optimize on. So you need to pay extra attention to these variables from the modeling stage. So the first step is to actually look at the variable, graph it, and then you will be applying the right transformation to that variable and the right diminishing returns. And here, when I say the right diminishing returns, it means that you need to have a tool that enables you to look at the shape of the curve that you are creating, all right? So So probably my advice here is that you need to equip yourself with a tool that at the modeling stage or even at the creation stage of your variables, you need to have a way to look at the curvature of your curves. Because what you do not want to end up with is either curves that are highly saturated or curve that never saturates. Because if we have curve that never saturate, you are approximating a linear transformation, which means that when you go to the optimization stage, the more you'll be spending on that variable, the more you will get revenue. And it means that all your budget will be shifted towards that channel, and no client will accept to tell them that you put all the budget on one channel. The other thing that you want really to avoid is to go for curves that are highly saturated. What does it mean? It means that there is no room for you to add more budget to those. So by construction, if you either go for curves that are either highly saturated or not at all saturated, you fall in a trap. So, and to know which ones to pick up, that's why it's very important to visualize those curves upfront. And what I generally do is that I ask my clients to sit with the media agency or with the people who are experienced in media and to show them these curves and to get their input when it comes to the shape of those curves and whether they make sense or not to them. And the way it works is that you won't be creating one curve, you'll be creating a range of curves that you think make sense, commercially speaking. And to choose the best curve, that would be the job of the auto modeler. What the auto modeler would then try to do, while controlling for all the other variables in the model, it will look at every single variable or diminishing return curve that you have created in your range of variables, and it will try to pick up the one that constitutes the best fit of your model. Okay, so I think here the secret is that first create a range of curves. Though this range needs to be logical, needs to be commercially viable, and then you let the auto model choose the best curve out of all these. And that curve will then end up in your optimization. So that's, in a way, the structure or the process that I would advise for analysts that want to end up with a great optimization output.
When it comes to clients who rely on an external measurement agency to do their marketing mix modeling projects for them, is there a way to empower those clients so that they can improve their optimization further?
I think we've seen a trend in the industry that most of clients are interested in what we call simulator or optimizer or standalone reporting tools. So what does it mean? It means that you have your data science team or your analyst team that will be creating all your models, will be doing all the model, the number crunching and all the sophisticated calculation using all sorts of techniques, regression, analytics, pool regression, log linears, and so forth. And then after that, on the other hand, you will have the users, or what I call the clients of your clients. So for example, you work with an in-house team that are doing modeling for them by themselves, but they have a media agency that will be in charge of deploying that modeling or using the results of the model to decide on the optimal budget. So what generally happens is that you need to be capable of equipping the planning teams with tools that can tap into the modeling results and that can offer the flexibility to enter a budget, to add media constraints. For example, I know by experience that I wouldn't be able to spend more than that on that particular channel, or I know that by experience that I do not want to advertise on February and I want to exclude this from my optimizer. So you need to have a tool that is capable of taking the results of the modeling and give the freedom to the user of that tool to play around with constraints, with target sales, with side of the budget, and run different scenarios until they decide on the best scenarios for them in order to optimize the budget going forward. So here I think it's very important to have these tools that enable you to give to prolong the life of the model, and dynamically, in the sense that it's not a one-off, it's a tool that you can change constraints, you can change target, and you can play with it. You can run different scenarios, you can compare between them until you end up with the right one for your brand.
Is there any kind of actionable tips that you can give to clients who are using these tools in order to translate marketing mix optimization insights into actual business decisions or actions?
So I think here a little bit I touch based on that. So obviously any optimization tool should give you the freedom to encompass constraints that are related to reality. So, for example, if you know that the inventory in a specific digital channel shouldn't exceed that much, you need to be capable of incorporating that constraint in your optimizer, because you cannot spend more than a certain amount on that channel because of that constraint, and this is a real life constraint. So if your optimizer doesn't allow you to account for real life constraints, or for example, there is a seasonality component that you need to add to your optimizer, and you need to add that to the tool that you are using should give you that freedom to do that, because you can obtain a result that is mathematical optimal, but it's not actionable, it's not implementable. Say, for example, if your media agency has a contract with a media owner, and they have to spend a specific amount of money, there is no way that you tell them that they need to reduce that, because by contract they have to invest that money. So if your optimizer is not capable of taking into consideration those constraints, there is no way that you can make your result actionable. So for me, if you want to analyze this, you need to make sure that whatever optimizer tool you are using allows you that freedom or that flexibility to impose constraints on your media channels.
Yes, absolutely. The model and whole process of optimization should always be related to the actual real use case and should not be separated from the reality of marketing spending. Ramla, thank you very much for your time. I'll leave any closing remarks to you in case there's any more tips you want to get.
So I think I'm going to close this discussion the same way I started it. Marketing mix modeling is a pyramid composed of 3 components. The first component, or the bottom of the pyramid, is the measurement part. And it's very, very important that in that measurement, you make sure that you pick up the right variable, you pick up the right transformation, you look at your curves, and then you let whatever algorithm you are using, automatic or manual or whatever, choose the best curve. And then after that, when you go to optimization, you are certain that you'll get a good result. And another advice I would give here, if you were to use a technology for your marketing mix modeling, make sure that this passage between optimization and modeling is streamlined. What does it mean? It means that while I am doing my model, I can jump onto the optimization module or part and look at, based on the model that I have constructed so far, what would be the output of my optimization. Don't treat it as a sequence. As you are modeling, you need to have a look at your optimizer, see what results it gives you. And you only validate your models when both your model makes sense and your optimization makes sense. Because if you do it in sequence, you can have a great model, great ROIs, but when you move to auto optimization later on, you find out that your curves are not really fit for optimization. And in this case, it becomes really problematic because you need to go back to the model and change it. And perhaps by that time, you have already reported those results to your client. So you cannot go and tell them, you know what, erase or delete what I have told you. That was wrong. I'm going to change my results, because you cannot do it anymore. So that's why it has to be done iteratively as you are modeling. Look at the results of your optimization and adjust accordingly. When you sign off your model, you have already signed off your optimization results.
Absolutely, absolutely. This has been very insightful, Ramla. Thank you very much for your time. That's it for our episode. Catch us next week in the next episode of Mass Analytics Podcast. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ash.